Today, OOUXer Jon Alderink and I are going to be talking about, guess what, AI, also Notion, systems design, and of course, object-oriented UX. This is such a cool conversation, and I am very proud to share it with you. But before we jump in, if you are listening or watching in real time at the beginning of April 2026, and you have been craving a way to get started with OOUX, practice OOUX, learn how OOUX can support AI strategy and innovation and even ethical conversations, do not skip over this invitation. Okay, so this week I am enrolling students in OOUX Discovery Live. This is a 6-week live training program designed to transform you into a systems thinking powerhouse, ready to take on any design challenge and weave AI into product architecture in ways that actually benefit humanity. So this program kicks off on April 6th, and we've already got, I think, over 60 designers from all over the world signed up who are just so fed up with surface level design. So it's a cool community that you'll be tapping into. And this program is designed to fit into your busy schedule. So it's just one module a week of video training, about an hour and a half to 2 hours of high quality training material. It's interactive. And then we're going to meet on Fridays for a live integration session. And we have 2 times to pick from, and the recordings are provided. There's also bonus workshops, bonus training, mentor support Monday through Friday, and you're going to tap into a community of some of the most amazing people, the type of people who listen to this podcast. So the investment is $555 or $222 if you are an existing student. Basically, you already have access to the course material. You'll just be getting your ticket to all of the live components. So existing students, you should have an email in your inbox on how to get that 222 price point. But if you don't, just email us at hello@rewiredux.com. If you can't find it, we'll help you out. Also, we are doing a scholarship program for folks that need a little bit of extra help. So if you are a student, if you are unemployed or underemployed, if the US dollar is just not friendly to you based on where you live, go ahead and see the link in the show notes for the scholarship application. We're giving 30 people $150 off just to make it that much more accessible. This price point is already freaking awesome. I mean, this should be a 4-figure program. So if you want to apply for that, check out the link on how to do that. Okay, I hope to see you in this program. I hope to get to know you over the next 6 weeks. We are going to be tackling 2 different design challenges that are just soaked in AI, and I'm just so excited that you're going to get some really amazing portfolio pieces on product architecture and object-oriented UX and AI strategy. It's just really going to help position you as the type of thinker that companies are really looking for right now. Also, if you have any questions, feel free to slide into my DMs over the next couple of days on Instagram, LinkedIn, and the OOUX forum. There's going to be links to all of those platforms below if you want to talk about this and figure out if it's a good fit for you. Okay, let's go talk to Jon. If you're looking to level up your UX, content, or product design practice to confidently and joyfully tackle complexity, ask the million-dollar questions, and design digital systems that actually work, you are so in the right place. Welcome to the UX Level Up podcast. I'm Sophia Prater, and for over a decade, I've been teaching professionals how to make the most valuable and often invisible parts of UX gloriously visible. We will untangle the structure beneath the surface before jumping into screens, saving time, money, and headaches, and having so much fun doing it. Together, let's UX collaboration, break down silos, and build shared understanding that sets everyone up for success. Let's become the systems thinkers that our teams, and quite honestly, the world, are so desperately craving. Let's level up our practice and redefine what it means to be a UX designer. Let's jump into it. Jon Alderink, welcome to the UX Level Up podcast.
Hey, good to see you, Sophia. So nice to be here. Super excited.
Yeah, I know. We're going to seriously nerd out. So for those that don't know Jon Alderink is a UX consultant with lots of experience in industrial IoT. So that's Internet of Things, machines talking to machines, which makes so much sense based on what we're going to talk about today, which is basically software talking to software and things talking to things, and how we can use AI and OOUX to work together to get things to talk to each other and make ourselves more efficient and effective. So you did the self-paced masterclass first, right? And sat with that for a while, because I feel like our LinkedIn conversation goes back at least a few years. We've been talking for a while, but this is the first time we've had a one-on-one, face-to-face, on a call. But how did you find out about OOUX, and when you first started digging into it, what were you like, ooh, I hope it helps me with this?
Yeah, so it kind of came at the end of a string of projects that I wished had gone a little bit better in terms of like what we deliver, the outputs, and clients kind of responding in a way of like, that's not exactly what we wanted. And it always kind of seemed to be this thing where the word research scares clients. Like, in terms of like a consultancy,
Yeah.
like if you say research and they're just like, that's expensive, it's,
Hmm.
time, it's money. Let's not do that. Let's just jump to the thing. They always want to see the thing. And I was labeled as a UI designer mainly at TwistThink, but always doing this UX stuff on the side. So through a couple of these projects, I was just like, okay, there has to be a better way to sell research. And that was like the initial Google search that I did. And I went down so many rabbit holes. And then I found your article on, I think it was like the Stanford like UX design curriculum like website. And at the bottom, there's like, here's a list of like related articles. And it's like, what is this thing? That's weird. And I clicked on it like OOUX. And I read that article and like my mind both exploded and opened, and because I've done like developing in the past as well, there were so many concepts in terms of like design systems and React components and UI design and UX stuff and how to think about these things like from that object oriented perspective. It was so new to me, but it made 100% sense as to, I was like, where was this for me?
Have
Like,
you been all my life?
where was it 6 months ago when I needed this? Where was it a year ago when I needed this? Where has it been all my life? And I was just like, oh my God. Then I just went down like this deep rabbit hole. And I'm talking to coworkers about all this stuff. And they're just like, yeah, 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 John. And then we were able to we had some learning, like, budget and all that stuff. I'm like, hey, I have to take this self-paced masterclass. Like, I know, like, this isn't a want, this is a need. And they approved it. So that was like 2023, I believe. And away I went because I was able to, I know we weren't supposed to work on real work and this, the masterclass at the same time, but I did because I knew that I need parts of this now.
Hmm.
I'm going to do both. And yeah, and
And
that's,
that's fine. You're allowed to, it's a
yeah,
recommendation to
yeah,
kind of,
yeah.
because if you're, and the reason John says that, and the reason I like recommend to not use real world projects while you're learning is because it's like you're taking all of this baggage with you, and it can get really complicated, and then you can get a little overwhelmed. But you
Yeah.
did the thing, and it
Yeah.
actually started like clicking.
Yeah, yeah. And then so I was using it in like little bits and pieces. We were working for a client, Vermeer. They make like big machines. If there's utility work and like they're laying like fiber optic line in the ground, and you'll see these big yellow machines like drilling into the ground. They make those. They have a whole bunch of other equipment that they make. But it was just trying to use little pieces because there's like getting on top of this design debt for building this product that they were building for years. And like, okay, I'm not going to use this full thing. I'm going to use pieces where I can. And it took about 8 months really then to finally get to a point where we got to a new feature where I was like, now I get to, it's been 8 months. I've been through the master class. We're to a point where I can like start fresh. Let's do an object map, all this stuff. And the features that were in the pipeline then, at the end of the quarter, that's when we got this really great report of that our team delivered like 8 times as many features and velocity improved by like 34%, something like that. Like we blew every other product team out of the water. And like I knew
Yeah.
it's a team effort. It's a team effort, but
Right.
like I know like under the surface that we were able to get to decisions so much more quickly because of the process and the OOUX process. Like it was remarkable. And the cloud devs, they knew it. Like I was working hand in hand with them a lot and they were all on board. They're like, oh my God, this is fantastic. Cool. We're going to start building this database. The front end devs were like, cool. We know exactly what APIs we're going to need. I knew exactly what I needed to design, which was like not near as much as what the PM and PO said it was going to be, but it was presenting them with that big object map of like, this is what we're talking. This is what you said. This is what you said you wanted. And no, 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 no. We actually just need this part. Awesome. So good to know. Great. Let's cut out all this other
Prioritize through
stuff.
the object
Yeah.
map.
Yeah. Yeah. Just showing
Without
them
doing the
that.
screens.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because it was like the original ask was we need a one-to-one of this old product into our new product. And I went, oh,
Right. I hear that a lot.
okay. That's what I hear that you're asking me. let's see if that's true or not, and show them that. And that's when the product manager was like, oh, no, 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 actually, we just need this part. I'm like, that's great.
Because
There's so
you
much
had
stuff.
the X-ray vision and you were able
Yeah.
to give them the X-ray vision
Yes.
too, which I
Yes.
love that. Like that's one of my
Yep.
favorite things to hear about because it's like you empowered them to make a better decision.
Yeah.
Like you
Yep.
made them better at their job, which is
Yep.
like that is like one of the best things that you can do as a designer is like not
Hmm.
only like be this like superstar, I do all these amazing things and look at me. It's like no, you're empowering everybody else on your team and bringing
Yeah.
everyone together so we all have that X-ray vision and we're all looking at the same freaking thing.
Yeah. So there was that understanding. And then again, the cloud devs, they having the conversation about the relationships of the objects that we're now talking about. Again, I didn't have the answers. And that's, I started becoming comfortable with that too. Like, I don't have the answers. I'm not supposed to have the answers. And that's okay. But I have questions and I have the right questions to ask to the right people. Now you all figure it out. I will design whatever you need me to design, but you need to talk about what this is first before I get started. And there was an instance of like, when this thing is zero, what do we do? If there are no machines in this list, but we need a list, how do we create a list if there's nothing there? So they like technically, like they were able to figure that out. Like, yeah, we'll just show something and it'll be like magic phantom data in the background. And until real data comes in, now we'll render all that stuff. But they were able to talk all through that. I didn't need to understand it. We just all knew like exactly how it was supposed to function, what I was supposed to design. The front end devs too, they made suggestions, and because they felt that like, they were part of the process as well from the beginning. Hey, John, we already have this component for this thing that you just designed. Can we change it? Yeah, if the functionality is the same, okay, I don't care. Like in terms of like what it looks like, historically I've been like, it doesn't matter to me. I want the
Yeah.
thing to work and I want it to work well for what we're trying to make it do. That's what's important.
Yeah.
Is that going to break
You're
anything?
you're empowering everyone on the
Yeah.
team to come
Yeah.
together, which
Yeah.
is
And we
so,
all got
so
to
freaking cool.
collaborate. Yeah. And everyone had kind of a seat at the table. No one felt left out. And then when it came down to just doing the thing, we just ran super
Like,
fast.
I mean, how you ran super fast.
Hmm.
You got to slow down to speed up a little bit,
Yeah. And it's so
When
hard to
people,
get that combo started.
I know when people are saying we don't have time to do OOUX, it's so like, oh my gosh, look at all these steps, and
Hmm.
it feels like taking a step back before taking a step forward, but it
Yeah.
just helps you move so much faster in the long
Oh, yeah.
run. And
Yeah.
like, how much of a more interesting, at least for me and for people that like this is their path to leveling up is like it's a much more interesting conversation about like okay if there's going to be zero things in this list, how are we going to populate these machines, right? Versus like should this be tabs or should it be an expand and collapse or should the button
Mhm.
go on the left or the right, or do we want like a little slide out bar or do we want a little pop up bar navigation thing? Like I
Mhm.
have never really cared about that. I'm like I just want it to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just feel like I find there was much more fun conversations to be having.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what we found on that project as well too. It was great. Like we didn't have to worry, and so much of the components had already been built. We didn't have to worry about as much. So like, let's just pick the right one and go. If we
Yeah.
need to make a new one, we will. But we had so many other ones existing. Like, let's just use what we have.
Right. And now with AI, I mean, if that's what you're offering is if you're offering up the decision making of whether it should be a slide out nav bar or like how it's going to, animate in and out, or if the button should be on the right or the left, AI is starting to do a really, really good job with that.
Yeah.
So, and I'm kind of, because I've never really enjoyed that work. I've enjoyed the structural work, the deciding work, the judgment, the like, oh, what is this world that we're actually building? Like,
Right.
let's build a
Yeah.
world together. And
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
things get to be in this world and how should they actually connect to each other?
Hmm.
That part is really fun. And I've always, in the beginning of my career, I had to do a lot of that UI work, but I was like,
And that's where
can't I
these
wave a
AI
magic wand
tools.
and just have this done for me? And now I may wave a magic wand and it's done for me.
Yeah, now we have it, right? And it's changing so fast. And I think that that's part of like this AI conversation as well, to where I've been thinking about this a lot too. We all know that technology evolves way faster than we do. And in this age of AI, it's faster than it's ever been before. Like we're looking at a thing and we're looking at like a fish in the water, and then we blink, we're like, holy shit, this thing's got legs now. I wasn't a I, we weren't accounting for that thing. Like this fish grew legs, now it's on land and it can breathe both air and water. What do we do now? Like how do we classify this thing?
Yeah.
And that evolution is happening so fast
It's about to
with
sprout wings.
yeah. So, like, when things are evolving that fast, and considering how slowly we as humans evolve and our thinking evolves,
Mhm.
that's again is where I think, OOUX kind of gives us that, allows us to kind of pump the brakes a little bit and be like, let's look at this thing. Let's look at the other, like, in a more abstract way of like, what is this thing now? We don't know what it's going to be in the future, but how do we understand this now in like concepts that we understand? And how can we build upon that as we start looking at all these different tools? They all do something similar and a lot of different things. How do we kind of reconcile all these differences with just AI in general? How do we use it in a useful way with our work, with strategy, design, whatever it is? Like taking a pause and being like, what is this? How do I use it? What is
Yeah.
my world now?
And you said something interesting that's like, and it made me kind of, I don't know, something just clicked in my head that like we evolve really slow. The technology evolves really fast. Yeah, that is true. And it's almost like you might hear that and somebody might be like, oh my gosh, like how are we ever going to keep up? Right. Like do we need to start evolving faster? And I think that there could be a real kind of groundedness with this, that as long as AI, this is the caveat, as long as AI is continuing to serve humanity, then it's going to be serving us in our slow evolving brains and how our brains work. So it will
Mhm.
still need to kind of adapt, or it will still need to serve us in a way that we can actually understand, right? And the way that we do understand is we understand using all of our perception tools, our eyes and our ears and our hands. And that has evolved for millions of years, right? Since we were like an amoeba.
Mhm.
And like the
Yeah.
first eye was developed and it was perceiving food,
Yeah.
right? And it was
Yeah.
perceiving things and it's perceiving threats. And this is how we evolved. We've evolved to perceive objects and how they relate to each other.
Right.
And we're still going to need that
Yeah.
in this brave new world.
Yeah, because like these tools, like they don't know, like they're relying on us to kind of be their brain. And I think where folks who have this object-oriented view of how we can help frame the future and shape the future a little bit with that, instead of just some random PM or PO being like, I have this tool, I'm just going to make a thing, and it kind of does what it does. But can you imagine if they had like this object-oriented, this tool set to instruct the tool to build a thing in a more object oriented way, of how much better that's going to be. And I think that's where our expertise can like really really help, because like we understand this a little bit more. We can help you build that thing more quickly. Like sure, you can technically get it
Yeah.
out there, but if you take this object oriented view, how much better is it going to be? Because it's going to make more intuitive sense to anyone who uses it, because we're using concepts that just apply to every human being.
Right, right. And I mean, like to go back to like the garbage in, garbage out, AI
Oh
right
yeah.
now is just being fed by existing
Hmm.
technology. And the existing technologies in general, the code is object oriented for the most part, but the user
Yep.
experiences are not object oriented.
Right.
This is why people hate technology. This is why my parents can't use Spotify. This is why
Yep.
things are actually hard to use really, and they don't feel in general, people aren't like, you know what? UX has done a great job. And I think that technology is so intuitive. Like nobody's saying that. Nobody
Hmm.
is saying that.
Yeah.
And so it's just going to keep like regurgitating existing stuff. So we have this opportunity here, right? We have this
Yeah.
like amazing like moment where we can say, what if we can start infusing this type of thinking? So actually, let's back it up for a second.
Yeah.
Got into the philosophy of AI and evolution. So you have been getting your hands dirty with AI for
Hmm.
a while now. I remember you like
Hmm.
messaging me about this, I think even like about a year ago or something, of like stuff that you were working on. And I think you build like a little OUX chatbot at one point? Did you do
I
that?
did.
You
Yeah.
did do
Yeah.
that. You did do
Yeah.
that. We had a conversation about that. So that was early
Yep.
on, but now you're getting your tools to talk to each other. Okay. So like Miro
Hmm.
and Figma and Claude Code and Notion. What are you actually building? Like paint a picture for me.
What I've actually built that I've used, like I started with my website. So after having been laid off last summer, I was like, well, I think I'm going to try to do my own thing and look for contract work. And I've been freelancing on the side, and I held off on it for forever. I'm just like, I don't want to take the time to like design this. Can I just have something that does it for me? And I finally got to the point to where, again, I stepped back and I'm like, okay, John, what do you want to do? What offerings are you going to have? Like, what do you need on your website? Like case studies. Okay, what's a case study? Let's step back and like, as a case study as an object, let's build that thing out. And I kind of started with, I do a lot of my brainstorming in Miro. And this is where I still want to like connect my tools even more, because even like 6 months ago, these connections, like they either weren't there or they weren't great. I think maybe there's an integration with Miro now, but when I first started doing this stuff, it's still just like throw stickies, digital sticky notes in a thing. All right, now I'll use that. Now I'll do the requirements gathering in Notion. I'll start building these databases. And I have found that Notion has been really, really handy. Even before this, like when I was doing like OOUX, like chatbots and stuff, I was structuring them in Notion as much as I could as like a brain, you
Like
know,
structuring the knowledge base.
Yeah,
Yeah.
structuring the knowledge base in an object-oriented way with these relational databases to just like, here's this information, it's related in this way. Now help me answer some of these questions. But so I started building these concepts of my website in Notion, and I started thinking like, okay, now I don't want to have to I could build this website if I wanted to, but I didn't want to. So I kind of did a test. I'm like, all right, Claude Code, you're going to help me. How can I use my Notion database as basically a CMS? I didn't want a WordPress site. I wanted to own all my stuff. I wanted control of my stuff, not building something super fancy. But how do I do that? So I've just started there of asking Claude Code, here's the tools that I have. Can you help me connect them? And it helped me set up a GitHub, a Git repo, connected, told me how to connect to Notion through like grabbing API keys and all that stuff. And then I was able to get that to work. And I said, okay, now based on this context in Notion, build a website based on like these case studies and all this other stuff. And it did. Again, it's not like perfect, but it did a really, really good job. It's like an MVP type thing. Like, oh, that's super cool. So now how I have it working is I can go into Notion and I can, oh man, because Notion also just released these agents. So that's how I started to further like automate some of these things. It was my first test of, I have a project. When I'm done with a project and I mark it from open to done, now I have an agent that sees that and says, project is done. And I have a set of instructions like, when you see that, write a case study. Use this format that I've established over here in this database, and it will do that. So it will populate, pull from my Orca hub for the project if one exists, and it will write a case study based on all the info that I have in that Orca hub in a very like non-technical way, but it will pull in all that documentation in like a short case study. And then I
Wait, wait,
can review
wait,
it.
wait, wait. So it
Yeah.
will actually look at the Orca hub.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Mm-hmm.
not like you have a project database. It's like, and this is what the point of the project was, and blah blah blah, and like you're talking
Yep.
about it, and then it just pulls it
Yep.
in. Like it actually looks at
Mm-hmm.
your OOUXing
Mm-hmm.
your Orca. And for those that are new to the podcast, Orca stands for Objects, Relationships, Calls to Action, and Attributes. It's the how of the OOUX philosophy. And so we have this template that is a bunch of connected databases. So it's looking at all those connected databases and the relationships between it
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
analyzing it and running a case study.
Yes. Yes.
Holy shit, that's so cool.
Yeah. So then it's creating a new object in my case studies database. It has permission to do that, create a new one. I'll go in and review it and I'll be like, close enough. I could write this myself. I kind of don't want to right now, but I could go and tweak it if I want to, but it will put it in draft mode. And then the second that I put it from draft to published, that Notion then sends like, again, I don't even know exactly how it works. All I know is that then Notion sends a signal to my Git repository, which then triggers a Vercel implementation of like, oh, I've seen that there's been a change in GitHub that it saw in Notion. And now I'm going to take this new thing that's a case study. I'm going to create a new case study on the website and I'm going to publish it. Here's the card for it. And then you click on the card and you get into the detail page. And everything is already, all that content is already populated because it's pulled directly from my Notion database. And I don't have to do a thing. So I could just like finish case studies, like just mark things as done, review them, publish them, and all those things take care of it itself. And here's all the case studies, and they're just live and there. And that automation has been a pretty new thing. And I'm just like, wow, this is still just tip of the iceberg, which
Hmm.
is fine because as we've talked about before too, of like systems and how complicated things can be. What I've been really intentional with is making sure that the simple system works first, testing that because if the simple systems don't work, the more complex one isn't going to either. So
Hmm.
doing these little tidbit things, these little tests, and just like building on that. Does this work? Does this work? Okay, now let's try this. Once we see that a whole thing kind of working, all right, I have this thing that was simple. It's gotten a little bit more complex. Now, how can I build upon that in the future? But really kind of pulling it way back first of like, let me try the simple thing first. Because if this
Yeah.
doesn't work, it's just going to be a bunch of automated, crap. It's just going to be a hot mess. Like, okay, you
Right.
automated all this stuff and to what end?
Right. And to get into also the something that I've been thinking about recently, like I don't know, for the past week or two,
Mhm.
is this idea of what to automate, what not to automate. So there's the question of like, okay, don't just like create a bunch of automations and then you end up with this tangle and you don't even know what's
Yeah.
happening anymore, right? Like you just
Hmm.
like, oh, I created this automation 6 months ago and then I forgot about it and then I just you know,
Yeah.
you're posting things you can easily lose track of this and that's kind of
Oh,
like
yeah.
the entropy that can happen with like as
Hmm.
these apps are going to explode and integrations are going to explode and automations are going to explode, things are going to get complicated and we're going to kind of like it's the same thing of like when we talk about direct manipulation in the master class, like you want the button to be on the thing so it's like really clear, like I do it and I touch the thing and then I affect the thing, which is how us humans think, right? But
Yeah.
now it's like we do a thing, the trigger is over here, and automations are wonderful. I'm not arguing against it at all. But we have to be aware that we do the thing over here, all the way over here, 8 things are happening.
Yeah.
And so how do we like map that and keep track of it? Is like, are you tracking all of your automations now to be like,
I don't
okay,
have that many to track right
what
now.
am I
So again,
doing?
like I've been keeping it really, really simple because I'm also like self-driving cars.
Mhm.
I don't ever want to be in one just because I have to have my hands on a wheel. So like personally, that's just me. And I kind of take that
Mhm.
approach to the stuff that I'm doing now of like, I don't want it doing too much for me because I don't know what it's going to do. I don't,
Oh,
again,
one
if
day
it's
you'll get
small
in a
enough,
Waymo. There'll be
I don't
One day you'll
know.
be like, oh, let's just take the Waymo. You'll be with somebody who wants to take the Waymo, and you'll find yourself in
Yeah.
a self-driving car.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm sure I'll just be jumping in that driver's seat, just like I need control, I need
Yeah,
to, but that's like just more of like a personal like control freak type tendencies here.
yeah. Know
So
thyself, though.
yeah, yeah, but to your point though, like it's still going to be important to at what point do you put in some of these checks and balances? How much
Mhm.
automation is too much automation? How much is just enough? You know?
Yeah. It's asking the question that I found. Well, I had a moment where I put an article into my custom GPT
Hmm.
last week, and I was like, what do I think about this?
Hmm.
And it gave me a great answer. It told me exactly what I think about it. And then
Yeah.
I realized I was like, oh, I totally just offloaded my thinking and my opinions. And it's just
Hmm.
such a dangerous, slippery slope where,
Yeah.
just because something is uncomfortable, but like, thinking is my moneymaker. And I want to be able to think on
Hmm.
my feet. I want to be able to think during a podcast. I want to be able to think if I'm on a panel conversation, if I'm speaking publicly. Like, I think in a lot of dating apps, I've heard that in dating apps, there's like prompts to help you flirt. And it's like, whatever we offload will atrophy.
Yeah.
And if you're using a flirting plugin or something or AI to help you flirt and chat, you're going to go to dinner. You've literally just offloaded your charm.
Yeah. Right.
And you're going
Like
to go
what
to dinner and
happens?
you're going to like have no idea how to talk to this person anymore. Like we just have to be
Right.
so careful. But like writing case studies, like you do the project, like I don't need to become an expert at writing case studies. Like I
Hmm.
could I'd hire, it's like if you would hire an intern to do it, then yeah, go ahead and hire AI to do it. Or if you'd hire even a professional to do it. Like that's not in my expertise. Like to make sure that
Yeah.
my website is SEO optimized or
Yep.
whatever. Like
Yep.
hire an AI for that. But
Hmm.
if we need to be really careful of setting boundaries and recognizing like just because AI can do it, we don't necessarily want AI to do it because we don't want to lose those skills ourselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I read your email about the,
Oh yeah.
sending the article out and all that stuff. And one, I really appreciate that transparency of just like, I messed up. It happens. And here's what
Yeah.
happened. And let me outline why that happened. And, again, of just like why it's important to have some of these things that we check. And again, to your point of what if we automate something, that thing is going to atrophy and just fall off like a skin tag. Like,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
and
It
is that
just
okay? Which is
art
fine. Like,
appendix.
yeah, right. If you're like, I really don't need to do this thing because I want to spend my time doing deep thinking on this thing in this
Uh-huh.
way, that's great. Again, like writing case studies, I don't want to spend my time doing that. Like, what are some of
Mhm.
these like things that you can just offload onto somebody if there were a person and you can just
Yeah,
have this AI tool do a 75, even 80% good enough job? People usually don't read them anyway, but
yeah,
it's all kind of like expected to have some of these things. But it's like, what are you okay with truly like just offloading onto someone or something else?
yeah,
Now, with like some of that deep thinking stuff, that is where we really need to be like, hold on, we still need to do that because once we start, that's where then I think we run in trouble of the things that make us human, the things that make us unique, the things that make the things that we create actually worthwhile. Everyone has their own personal experience, and I think that there's something uniquely beautiful about interjecting even digital products with that humanness that resonates with other humans. I don't think we can offload a lot of that to an AI thing and have it be, I don't know.
yeah.
Maybe it doesn't need to be meaningful. Maybe that you're making a product and you're not trying to create meaning. You're just trying to do a thing, which again is fine. But
Right.
if there's too much of that out there, it starts to just become regurgitated. And now we're just recycling a bunch of inhumanized, crappy products that everyone's just sort of using. And,
Yeah.
where's the human element?
It's a question I've definitely been struggling with. And just for context, the email that John is talking about is I sent out an email on Wednesday accidentally. And what I did in the email, the follow-up email, is I laid out my process of AI in the loop. So how like I usually start my pieces of content with like a voice note or a scribble, and then I put that voice note, I get the transcription, then I put it in my custom bot to get like that ends up being like the fourth draft or something, and then I go back over it again. So when you're touching my emails and my content, it's like you're not directly touching the AI, right? Like there's me in between. And the email that went out early on Wednesday was like the draft four. So it was before I had gone back over it. And it's wild. Like, I mean, maybe some people wouldn't have noticed, but I think most people were like, sounds a little soulless. So I had to write the next day. I was like, sorry, y'all got direct contact with my AI. And that's just not what I want. And honestly, like in that email I wrote and that you read, John, and like I wrote that in a weird way, it's helped my content creation become more organic because a lot of the ideas that
Hmm.
I'm like walking through the forest and I'd voice note an idea. I kind of ramble it out. Then I put it into Descript to get the transcript. I clean up my transcript a little bit. Then I put it into the custom AI. Then it creates a nice structure for me. That's like exactly what I would hire an intern to do. I'd be like,
Yeah.
hey, write a draft, blah, 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 figure out what I'm saying, and then make this kind of like into an email, and then let me look at it, and then bring it back to me, and then I'll make it good. It's
Yeah.
exactly what I would hire an intern to do, or like a, kind of a copywriting professional.
Yeah, and I loved reading about that too, and it kind of reframed my thinking on some of the stuff as well. Just like, again, when some of these tools first came out, I remember you saying like, "It's just going to be me straight up all the time. It's going to be a
Yeah.
human writing these content."
I
But
will never
geez, we
use
need
the
to adapt,
AI.
right? But you've also like seen the importance of taking out some of the busy work, but still maintaining the human aspect and the fact that it's also changed your process of like, oh, I can go more natural and more organic because of this tool. And I can just go and do this thing in a more natural conversational way and create, a newsletter, social media post, whatever it is, in just a more natural way for Sophia. Like this is how I
Yeah.
talk, this is what I do. And now I can do that and feed it into my tool and I can be like, that's not how I sound, and do some tweaking and all that jazz. So it's like you're using this AI tool, but you're getting an even more human like output because you've just kind of changed the way that you've worked with it, which I think we should all kind of keep in mind too, of just, to the point of like, we can offload some of these things. When you do that, the parts of your process that you want to maintain, how can you further humanize those aspects and make them more unique to you? Because I like people. I'm not like super like social or anything, but like we're just such unique creatures and we can't lose that. So let's use these tools to amplify our own voices and try to break out of this just gray, like average, just there's just a bunch of average stuff out
Yes.
there, you know?
Amplify of the word that I like to use is polarizing traits. So the
Hmm.
things that
Hmm.
make us super unique that like not everybody's gonna like, that are gonna be, a little bit like,
Yep.
the things that maybe even as a kid you were told were bad and wrong. And but that you're
Yeah.
like, actually, I like that about myself. I'm going to
Yep.
amplify that. And then we can use how can we use AI again to your point of like
Hmm.
in this process, in my AI in the loop process. Like I start it and then I end it. And then AI is instead of like human in the loop, it's an AI in the loop.
Hmm.
And it makes me feel like a freaking celebrity. I'm like, I just get to like do the creative part and I don't need to mess around with like formatting and like bolding the right things and all that stuff. So it does feel empowering. So I think we all need to pay attention to how it feels. Like when I pasted that article in and I said, tell me what I think about this. That's what made me, I was like, I had this
Yeah.
feeling. I was like, that feels gross and lazy. It does not feel good. It does not feel, I do not, this does not make me feel like a celebrity. This is not what a celebrity does. The
Hmm.
celebrity, the main character of my life, it doesn't be like, tell me what I think about this. No, I'm the one that says what I think. I develop my own point of views. So I guess the advice out there for everybody is just to really start paying attention to how you feel as you are using AI, as you are building your own agents, as you're building your Claude skills, as you're outsourcing to this amazing technology. What are your boundaries?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm wondering what your reaction was when that happened as well. If there was a sense of, wow, this thing was really, really accurate. Like it told me what I thought, and that's really what I think.
Yeah.
If there was perhaps also like a level of concern there of just, oh my God, I'm replaceable. Like, is
Yeah.
that maybe potentially,
Not
I built this thing and am I replacing myself? Is this a worry that we were kind of worried about, but should we be more? I don't know. Like, I'm just kind of wondering what other feelings you felt like when you kind of
I
like
mean,
realized that.
so I'm writing an email right now, a piece of content on like the three, it might be four, the four types of people that Orca really works for. Because I like to say like OUX is not for every person and every designer. It's for every team. It's for every product, but it doesn't really click with everybody. It takes a certain type of nerd to really like latch onto it. And I prompted ChatGPT, like, this is an idea. Like, there's like the three types of people. Like, come up with it, and it did. It came up with something that was like okay. And actually, let me back up in the story. It came up with something. I didn't know if it was okay or not. I pasted it into Notion, and I was like, you know what? I am not going to read this yet. I am going to come up with, I think, are the three main types of, like, let me just like think about this for 15 minutes. Like, what are these three types of people? And I ended up coming up with those. And then I read ChatGPT's version, my custom GPTs, and we only had one in common. And the other two were dumb. So I was like, okay. And then there was one that I was like, oh no, let's like, so we ended up collaborating. It was like a brainstorm. But I was like,
Hmm.
you know what? I don't want to go straight into reading this because I don't want it to cloud me. Let me think about what my take on
Hmm.
this is first, and then I actually ended up pasting both in and was like, okay, let's combine these. I like what you did here. I don't like what you did here. And that felt much better than just being like, those are the three things.
Yeah.
So yeah, what about you? Have you
Been
had
like
those
scared.
moments where you're like, oh, it did such a good job?
Let's see. Let me think. It's usually close enough, but honestly, like I'm just like, I'm usually judging like, is this good enough or not? Is this close enough to how I would word something? Like, even like applying for jobs now too. Using it to draft cover letters, reviewing the cover letters to make sure that it's still my voice, and then I'm like, okay, is this really how I approach this, or did you just generate stuff? And like sometimes it's like it's really close, but I'm just like, ooh, well, I don't know that I would still just like want to submit this. I want to still put part of my personality in there, and I will tweak it. But it's like the more you do it, the more accurate it gets. And you're just like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how much I want to remove myself from this loop,
Yeah.
but I also don't know how much time I want to spend writing a million cover letters to a million positions that you get
Right.
ghosted on and all that stuff. Like, it's you just spend so much
Tough
time
out
doing this.
there. It's tough
Yeah.
out there for sure. But
Oh, yeah.
I mean, but then there's the question of like, I mean, even with writing the case studies, like I
Hmm.
will ask you about, like, is that what you want to be outsourcing right now? Like outsourcing how you talk about your work, how you sort of sell your
Hmm.
work, how you say that it's different. So, and you don't have to answer that question. It's just like we all need to be very discerning, I think.
Yep.
But actually, so like to go back to some of the work that you're doing with like connecting all of these tools,
Hmm. Hmm.
Everybody's like, okay, AI can build software, everything is like suddenly easy. Like, what actually became easier for you? And what were the pieces that you were like, this was still hard? Like, I needed, like, it wasn't necessarily easy for AI to do it. What was you, were you like, actually, I don't really care how that's working. Like, you're doing a great job with that. Go for it. And what were the parts that you're like, no, 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 that does need to be me?
Yeah. So again, with like the website example, I would say that having it kind of generate that stuff on, like a first draft was good enough. And now I'm kind of developing kind of a way to where I want Figma to kind of I had that not as part of much of my workflow as I would like it to where like, okay, now I want to tweak some things. I want to set up my design system a little bit more tightly, a little bit more branded. So it's a little bit more consistent because there's some wonkiness and stuff that still happens. And so it gave me a good like first draft, and I know that I need to refine that. And like, oh, this is what I would like this to be. And I look at colors a lot. I mean, I spent a number of years in the comic book industry as a color artist for like Marvel and DC. So I'm looking at like color as like a communication tool like all the time. And it got close, but I know that I can be better. So that's where I'm like, I know I can tweak that. And I know that I need to go back into those case studies too and review them. Like, if I'm honest, and be like, I need to make this sound more like me. Where I tend to filter myself is I can be like really saucy when I'm talking about things. And it's just like, I don't know that that really resonates with people. Like, I don't think that they just want to hear like my saucy take on like what this is. What is the right balance and of sounding professional, but also like friendly and me. And I don't think it took the stuff from the Notion database and it made a thing, but it's still pretty sterile. And I know that I need to go in and do a better job of reviewing that content because as like a communication tool, again, kind of going back to like the uniqueness of me, like it's not there yet. But I wanted to get stuff out there anyway and just create some case studies. I can edit them, whatever. Again, like
Yeah.
nobody's looking at my stuff anyhow, but I know that I need to get a part of me in that stuff again.
When it comes to like, I mean, I think you mentioned that you were working also in Notion with like
Mhm.
using OUX actually to organize your objects, like clients and
Mhm.
projects and
Mhm.
invoices and expenses. Are you
Yep.
using AI at all to help you with that? Or is that just like you were using OUX to figure out like what your system, basically like your second brain?
Both. So,
Okay.
talking about like clients, projects, invoices, expenses, like things that I've kind of taken another step back, like looking at like Norn Forge as a business, the stuff that I do as a business. What do I need? I'm not a financial person, but I know that I need some sort of like financial capabilities of tracking expenses of invoices because I don't want to do that at the end of the year and breaking that stuff down. One, again, kind of doing that manually, but and then building those databases, but then also then going back to an AI tool, be like, hey, I don't quite understand maybe what I need for this. Can you help me figure this out? And I've created like a new coworker in Claude code to where I've put in like the glossary stuff from OOUX. I'm like, this is what this is. Here's all the context for it. Help
Mhm.
me analyze this little slice. And it was like, I would say like 90%. Like, okay, you need invoices. Here's a quarter. And like, oh, quarters. Okay, there are multiple
Mm.
projects in a quarter. There are multiple quarters in a year. How can I further like, organize my financial stuff and tracking and invoices and all that? So it kind of helped point out some things that I don't know because like I said, I'm not a finance person.
So it
And then
became like
going in,
a OUXy domain expert.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But it was like already kind of pulling from what I had, helping me kind of refine that a little bit. And what I've started to do in Notion again too is like I have now a business dashboard and I'm folding in some things like risk calculation of here's all the projects I have, here's the ones that are maybe, are like in the pipeline. Here's what's sent, here's what I have, and what is the risk then of maybe like not being able to meet like quarterly financial goals? Like, not just like
Mm.
you're here, but we see what's in the pipeline, John. Here's this dashboard showing like you only have maybe like a 53% chance of achieving this goal. What does that mean? And I'm like integrating some things. Another person I was looking into, Sam Savage, does a lot of stuff on statistics and probability. And he uses these things called SIPs and slurps, which is like stochastic information packets. And then the slurp thing is actually like SIPs with relationships preserved. And that I was just like, oh, wait a minute, using like data that's related to each other. So it's like
Oh
using this
yeah.
way to project manage of here are these tasks. This one, this timeline is dependent on this one. So there's a relationship between these two bits of data here that need to be preserved when calculating the risk for this project. Like instead of a client is like, here's 40 grand and you have 6 weeks. Instead of saying like, yes, I can do that, being able to come to that person and be like, well, there's really only like a 73% chance of this project succeeding with those limitations. Can we either get more money or can we get more time? And now, okay, now we're like 90% of like success rate instead of just being able to tell them yes and no, I can't do that. It's being able to give them a percentage. So it's taking all of these things from like my business as well and like coming up with that calculation as well. So I built it in Notion and then I have Figma make like a mock dashboard of it too.
Okay.
And yeah. So I was like, wow, it was for like a personal tool. That's kind of like how I'm approaching these things too. Like, how can we use these tools, these AI tools, OOUX, and build other tools that we need that are like customized to us?
Exactly. Yeah. I
You
mean,
know?
apps too. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just amazing like what could be done and what's happened just in the last couple months
Hmm.
within this space. And so my question here is like when the AI is suggesting objects to you, you're like, okay, and this is what I'm building here. The AI is
Hmm.
suggesting objects, even relationships between things.
Hmm.
Where does that leave us as the OUXer? Like, where does our judgment come in? Where do our
Hmm.
design skills come in? Where is the human in the loop when it comes to defining what a system even needs to be?
Yeah. So what I found with when it suggested a few relationships and things like that. And again, the importance of reviewing the outputs and not just trusting it outright. It got 4 out of the 5 relationships, I would say, right. But there was one I'm just like, I don't know that this really is a one to many. I think this is just a one because this thing doesn't exist without this thing. Like it can't,
Okay.
when this thing is created, this thing comes along with it. It's like a local object, right? Like it just doesn't
Mm-hmm.
exist like not exist. If this thing exists, then this one does too. Like that's just how this works. And it missed that. So I tweaked that part just to make sure that, and I haven't like regenerated another thing, but it's you got to check your work.
Gotta check
And
it.
that's
Yeah.
where we come in too. It's using that expertise and you got to know this stuff to know what you're missing. Because if you don't, you probably wouldn't notice anything, but the folks who have gone through the master class or, one of the cohorts, you're going to look at that stuff and you're going to be, that critical thinking part
Yeah.
that's our superpower and we can spot it. And it was just like, no, that right there's this stuff. I know that that's probably not right in the context of this problem domain that I know that I'm
In the
tackling.
yeah, in that context. So the
Yeah.
context that you're
Hmm.
working on where you could be like,
Yep.
oh, quarters makes total sense. And another
Hmm.
context, quarters doesn't make sense at all. So I think when it comes to simple established domains like finance, personal finance is a great example. Those models already exist. Like those are
Hmm.
documented out there, right? So the AI, even though it doesn't really understand what an object actually is, it doesn't really understand the isness of it, to use the really gross information architecture term. It doesn't understand the thingness of it,
Hmm.
because to get into some AI philosophy here, and this is what I'm learning from AI experts, even AI optimists are saying that really an AI can't really understand a thing until it understands itself as a thing, until it understands itself. So it'll probably take something different than what we have right now. Probably the large language model is hitting an asymptote on this, and it actually being able to build a world model. It simulates the understanding of a world model pretty well when it comes to simple established domains. Once we go into domains that actually are currently broken, even we get this garbage in, garbage out, right? So a lot of what we do as OUXers is we go into really complex, nuanced, contextual domains, and we look at systems that are currently broken, right? So if you even sit the AI in to be like, okay, what is the like analyze this relational database and the UI to extract an object model, it could extract something that's just going to propagate the exact same problems,
Yep.
right? Because a lot of times what we're doing is we go and we look at what's there and we're like, the way that y'all have this set up is not correct. This is not actually how people are thinking about it. So it
Yeah.
doesn't match the mental model. So I think that's a big part of where our value is going to become, is like, yeah, I think AI can create some really solid OUX if you train it on some OUX for simple domains that are already established, that like it can take a lot of different inputs and basically say, yeah, you got expenses, you got clients have projects, but take that into a new domain, take that into something
Mhm.
that we have a lot of broken systems, and it's going to start to need that understand the humans working in that domain to then correct it and even create the inputs for it.
Absolutely. I constantly think about the furniture design metaphor that you've used to where like you've designed a chair, but you have to think of that thing in the context of like the direct context of chair in a room. Okay, now what is the context of that room in the building? Where's that context of the building in the city? Like say you have a big piece of
Yes.
furniture and technically it's going to fit in the room, but there's no way in hell that you're going to deliver a number of these down a busy metropolitan street and get it into a freight elevator and into the room. So, like, congratulations, you've designed this beautiful table in this room that will fit, but your doors aren't big enough to fit the thing in. It's
Yeah.
that bit too of just like the babushka nesting dolls, as you've said too, of like
Yes.
understanding and what is the right scope to understand as well. Like, do I need to understand that many levels out? Maybe I do, but maybe I don't. Whatever's contextually relevant to the problem domain at hand for this thing, so we don't boil the ocean and spend a lot of time going down a bunch of rabbit holes. And it's understanding that as well too. Like let's look at the direct context and now let's look at the one bubble out,
Yeah.
you know. And now let's talk about that a little bit. Do we need to go out or do we just need to go here and now go back in again?
Yeah.
And I feel like it's that domain and like systems, related systems thinking, and each of those systems are other objects and things like that. So it's really kind of like being able to understand still the scope of the problem and what we
Yeah.
really need to actually get into.
And prioritize it too. So
Hmm.
like what's first, and then
Yeah.
what should we test first? What should and that quote is a Elil Sarnen. I always pronounce the name wrong, but it's an industrial designer. I believe yes, an industrial designer. Eero Saarinen. Sometimes it's attributed to his dad, who is Elil. So yeah, that was the quote. It was always design a thing by considering its next larger context: a chair in a room in a house in an environment in a city plan. So good.
So like we have to take that mental model like with the things that we're working on and thinking of those like other domains of what we're working on. And
Totally. Totally. Okay. So, what would you say to designers who think that AI is going to replace UX? For the folks that are worried about that, they're like, AI is going to take my job. What would you recommend to them? What would you say to them?
I would call back to another thing that you talk about, and I love this too, of just, designers in general, myself included, have really struggled with, again, fighting for a seat at the table.
Hmm.
And this table doesn't necessarily, at least from my perspective, like we don't even know that we want you here. We don't know that we need you here. And I think that some of that is fed into this job market too, of just like an AI thing can do what you do.
Yeah.
And we're like, "Oh, wait a minute, but it can't." So this idea of like now taking that concept of building your own table that people want to sit at, using these tools in a way that allows you to do that in whatever way that fits for you. Start looking into that. Like, how can you make yourself like superhuman and designer? Like looking into these tools of not just building products, but using them to help you build that table, even if you're not a carpenter. Have it help you build that table that what you want to do. I would say that that's going to be really important of using these tools to just continue to augment your abilities to the point where other people are, developers usually, it's just like, oh my God, you're talking about stuff that I want to be a part of. Like I want to work with you. And to me, I feel like that the selling point, you have to make it with the developers and people who are implementing things, which is a little bit of a sticky situation too, because a lot of them are being replaced as well. We'll just have Claude Code do it. Who am I going to collaborate with? I'm not going to collaborate with like, so I don't know, like there are parts of this system that are starting to shift and change a little bit
Mhm.
too. So how do you work
Yeah.
within those changes? It's
I mean, I think we're going to start seeing so many companies that were engineering led for so long are going to start becoming design led, but design is going to have to
mhm.
reinvent itself on what does it even mean to be a designer.
Yeah.
And I think I see the world through OOUX glasses, but I mean, for me, it's like this is the judgment piece. This is the taste making piece. This is the world building piece. And for designers who their I think a lot of designers have spent 80% of their time creating screens and laying out screens.
Right.
And if 80% of the value that you're bringing is laying out screens,
Mhm.
then it's time to evolve for sure and to start going up the food chain a little bit,
Yep.
up the thinking chain,
Yep.
so that we're actually defining what the system is. Like AI is making it so easy to generate systems, but somebody's got to still come in and say, what does the system need to be? How is it actually
Yeah.
going to serve humanity and reflect the way that we think about our world? So I think that designers have like a really, really exciting moment right now where,
Yeah. It's that piece of, so what you just said of, we don't think in screens. We don't. And there's still this expectation, like designers make screens, and it's kind of up to designers now too to be like, I don't do that. I mean, I can do that, but we need to look at the systems in
I
place
can't do
here.
that with
So
AI.
yeah, right. And you could be like, well, you can do that with AI. I don't
Yeah.
even need to do it. Like, and that's the
Mhm.
scary part, right? Like someone being able to be like, oh, I can generate screens. That's where it's the designer's opportunity to be like, well, that's nice, but can you design the systems
Mhm.
related to those screens in a way that people are going to understand? You probably don't have, but let me tell you what I can do. I can help you build that world model, that domain, so that that system works. It's represented in screens. If you want to do that, wouldn't that be crazy and unique to where designers just like, you know what? I'm not going to design any screens anymore. You do that. I don't want to do it. But here, let me help you design the
Everybody can do it.
system. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
We
and
can.
and designing that system becomes the prompt, if you will, to design those screens, because once you define the objects, the relationships, the CTAs, and the attributes, that is a badass prompt for Claude Code right there. To just
Yeah.
put that in, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh, you're speaking my language, you're talking about entities and the relationship between entities and the capabilities of those entities and the operations that we need to have. Like, it's a great way to prompt human developers, it's a great way to prompt AI developers, so, and work with it too. So yeah, it's quite the moment that we're up against here, where we can do that part, that and have those conversations that we were talking about before. They're so much more fun than talking about, like, is this, does this thing need to be on the right or left of the screen? Yeah.
I'll share one last example here because I know we're kind of running up on time. But so I've been working with a former instructor of mine. We're working with a client, and their original ask was, "Hey, he wanted to bring me on for my strategic prowess. Like he knows like the stuff that I've been doing. He's just like, John, I need your brain. I need you on this project. I think you'd be great." And the initial ask from the client was, "We just need a website design. We just need new screens. We just need things freshened up." And so he brought me in. I looked at stuff, and it's just like, wait a minute. Okay, so your problem isn't that you have an outdated website. It started to come to surface that our search results and our Google Analytics have like crashed because Google has changed their algorithm, because people aren't searching the web like they used to, in terms of like, I'm gonna search this thing and here's a list of places. Now I'm gonna click into that website. Now we have this overview. Okay, so in this process, I've also come to learn about like schema.org stuff, which was
Mm-hmm.
completely off my radar before this project, because their ask was like, oh, well, it's not we want better screens, it's like we want to improve our rankings. Okay, well, Google's changed the way, because people have changed the way that they've looked for information. This schema type structure fits right in too with object oriented stuff, because it's wrapping these objects on a website in a tag that is now saying to any sort of like, it could be Claude, it could be GPT, like this is how they're finding information. And schema, they call it a thing. It's not an They call it a thing. Like it's not an object, it's a thing. Like here's this thing, here's an FAQ thing.
Yeah.
And you wrap these things in like the context of a page, like you're giving context to that thing on a page. So, and that page has its own context. And that's what these search engines are looking for now, to be like, I know, I'm going to pull that piece of information out because I know the context of this information on this page, on this thing, because it's wrapped in these schema tags that, so now we have things like answer engine optimization. So before it's like search engine optimization, still a thing, but now we're looking at answer engine optimization. So I looked at their stuff. I'm like, okay, here's your site, but here's how we can structure your website now in an object-oriented way for how people are going to look for information when they come to you our hope is when people search for, EHS training, that because you now have these things wrapped in this specific object-oriented code, that's going to help you surface like your expertise in a search result and things like that. So again, to come to that point of like the original ask was help us design screens, and you have to look at the system and the problem and realize like, is that what you really need? That might be a part of it, but it's usually like the data structure underneath. And yeah.
It's usually the data structure underneath. That is cool. I want that for OOUX.com. Can we wrap all of our objects in schema tags? That would be good.
Yeah. And I asked Claude to do that with my website too, since I'm just like, okay, SEO optimize the content on here and AEO optimize it. And it wrote the schema tags. Like I can look into the code through Cursor, and it was like, okay, here's the schema tag. So like when it's like, here's Jon Alderink as a person who's a thing in context of this other stuff. Like, now these answer engines know exactly what piece of information to pull. But yeah, people need to start thinking about like schemas a little bit more.
I'm going to be experimenting with that this weekend. Mm-hmm. Thanks for just eating up my weekend, because now I'm like, okay, my eyes have been opened. That is amazing.
Sorry.
All right, sorry. Yeah. I appreciate it. Jon, thank you so much for being on the podcast. How can people find you if someone's listening and they're like, I want to hire Jon to do super strategic thinking and OOUX fun stuff, or they just want to connect with you? Would that be on LinkedIn, your website? Where would they find you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn the most, so LinkedIn is always a good place. You can also reach out to me on my website, Nornforge, NORNFORGE.co. And I also liked how Nornforge almost sounds like noun forage, which was totally intentional. So.
It does. Step one of the process.
That's
noun
right.
foraging. I'll probably be building a little app to help people noun forage. See, a little micro tool that's on the radar. Jon, again, thank you so much. We'll put the links in the show notes so that you can reach out to Jon if you want to chat with him. And happy OUXing, everybody. Cheers.
Pleasure. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much for listening to the UX Level Up podcast. If you want to connect with me, Sophia, please follow me on Instagram at SophiaVUX, or you can find me on LinkedIn, Sophia Prater. I'm pretty easy to find there. Our music was brought to you by Ruby Vell, courtesy of Sugaroo Records. Thanks again for listening.